Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this morning's Contractors Chatter. I'm your host, Luciana Turner. We're doing Contractors Chatter a little different this year. As I said last night during our live, we're doing them live this year. We're doing the interviews live. So grab your coffee, tag your business bestie. We're having an amazing conversation around caregivers fatigue. And I believe this is an important conversation to start the season off with because everybody knows somebody, everyone is dealing with somebody who is caregiving for a child, a parent, a spouse, and we need to talk about how we're balancing that. And joining us this morning is our guest. She is the executive director and lead behavior specialist of Destination Family Services, located in Virginia Beach. She has earned her bachelor's associates in sociology from South Carolina State University and has a master's of arts in teaching from Liberty University. She has worked over the core states of South Carolina, Maryland, and Virginia, and she has skills and training program for high risk and the general population of families that has recognized both nationally and international work. So let's bring Whitney on and we're going to get this conversation started. Good morning and welcome, Whitney. How are you doing?
Hi, me. I'm well.
Can I
Yep. Are you able to hear me okay?
There's a slight delay, but that's okay. Technology is great when it works, but that's all right. We're going to make this
Okay.
work. This is an important topic, and today, and we're having this in two parts. We're talking about how it affects employee morale and employee performance. And then in part two, which is next week, we're talking about how it affects leaders, business founders, and the whole gambit. So, first of all, let's talk about what is caretaker fatigue. Let's start there.
So it's often a feeling by people who are providing a task for a loved one, child. It could be a friend, it could be a parent, it could be a grandchild. But ultimately, a person who is taking on a task.
Okay. So, what often leads up to caretaker fatigue? What causes it?
So, caregiving for the biggest challenges, especially when they're also is that time management. We all have enough time in the day, and that's ultimately what can lead is feeling as trying to live our day-to-day life, not excluding the person that we're. So when we don't pause and reflect and things, these standards that we've of how we go and how they should be completed, the biggest things that can live caregiver fatigue.
Okay. So I want you to kind of delve into this topic a little bit, and we want to. And can you adjust your mic a little bit because you're still? I'm getting a message that you're going in and out. So I want you to delve into this topic a little bit around the overall effects. We heard that caretaker fatigue comes from time management, and I know somebody's saying I manage my time well, but there's blind spots. I know somebody said I manage my time well, but there's blind spots to it. Because I know I watched my mother care for my father, and she changed her shift around, and she was running home on her breaks, and I'm looking at her and I'm like, she's wearing herself out, but she didn't allow space really for my sister and I to help. So I just really want you to do your thing and come in and talk to the audience about giving space and not allow yourself to burn out. So just go ahead and do what you do.
So a lot of people experience exhaustion and then guilt, two things that are significant with the pressure to excel in their career, being fully present for their loved one. Out, there's challenges include limited focus, and there are some people that don't get support from other loved ones, creates feelings of almost sometimes resentment. There's someone who's taking the lead and they don't feel as though from other family members, then of resentment from those other families. There are often where someone will just full caregiver role and other people to participate. And I can't say I know that I, I know the person may likely feel that they would rather just do it themselves. That is being done quickly. They know that they've done. You're experiencing this with your family. Sit down and try to have a conversation. Taking the lead caregiver, sure that they understand that you are willing to participate. Often say is things such as um, so that every appointments are scheduled when this person has to be here and this person has that everyone can collectively work together, that the person's what they need, because ultimately that's what everyone is coming together to and receiving the care. Much support is needed. So things I would highly suggest is using their calendar to share events that are going on, any and things of that nature, and about what you need.
I wanted to address a couple of points that you made, and because I thought they were great points. Um, and then I wanted to say a couple of things. Some people just don't know how to ask for help. So they take on this, especially us women. I don't know where it comes from. This Wonder Woman, I call it the Wonder Woman syndrome. We just feel like we have to do everything. And I don't know where that comes from. And then when we get tired, we become resentful of the people around us. And it's like we want to help. But for those who don't have anyone, what are there any supports around for people of that nature? Because if you lose your job, then
Right.
that's just trouble on trouble.
Absolutely. So although we stereotype home care, I highly encourage people to utilize the one has access to those. That could be something simple is paid is typically to a non-giver that can come in and give her time to tell people all the time Even if it's not covered, insurance or whatever their other funding source, including that in your budget. If it's just for 3 to 4 hours, specialized one needs a certain level of come in and provide that relief 4 hours a week. You only afford it if you're doing private every other week. Look at your budget, take a look at your sources to see where I would say look at home care services can come in and some of those day-to-day tasks, using the resources you have. We will say we don't have anyone. We really do have people waiting a green light to come in. And so the key takeaway I was looking to respite services, home health services with a personal, and that can be for any age on up through adults, expect to have various disabilities.
Okay, so it's really a matter of people, they're so caught in the storm, they're not really looking around to see what's available.
And
I tell my
and I can imagine an umbrella, not necessarily. So in the storm.
yeah, it's a lot. Taking care. Like I said, I watched my mother take care of my father. When I was home. When I was home from school, I took over the morning medication. When I was home on breaks, and when I wasn't there, she would have to literally time her breaks and run home. Good thing she worked down the street. Run home and administer his morning medicine, cook him something, and then run back home. And that's a lot, and it did cause problems at the job when the management at work changed. It created a problem because she had been at her job for years, and her old management knew my father, so it was take your time, do what you need to do. When the new management came in, it was, well, we can't have this. It became a issue.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's an added layer of frustration.
Yeah.
So you go from this valued employee, and then when something changes, valued employee becomes problem employee. But the problem is the loved one. The problem is the person that you want to take care of and nurse back to health. But that's not a problem. That's something that you need to and want to do. And you can't always, or you don't always feel that you want to put that responsibility on someone else. So I just watched her do that, and it was like, well, why don't you hire someone? And especially the older generation, that just wasn't something you did.
I agree, and I would say with that, of course, I always are honest, with transparent, but professional, relevant, such as needing flex work and explain how to benefit your productivity. And the flexibility, if they see that compromise the performance that but it also helps such as using for caregiving while you're those key work times, all of that. And like you said, management team that comes in of how they're going to change every that instance. Now we're looking at mode of survival versus care. Sometimes family members make a caregiver for their loved one. And for a lot of people, again, what their funding sources are. Medicaid waivers, Medicare wants to become paid caregivers because they can't find support professionals, or maybe they're not available in their area rural area in. So oftentimes when they sees that they will approve you to become a paid caregiver. If that's an option, you look into that. I also it's okay to reach out for help if it's to maintaining your employment and giver service. It might be time to work to see who else is willing to come in, some of those tasks off the table for you.
You know, that was something we didn't find out about until just before my father passed, that Medicaid would have paid her to be his caregiver. And, you know, some other things where she could have, because she could have retired, but they were looking at her retirement benefits and everything. And she could have claimed his Social Security, gotten paid to be his caregiver, and the stress would have been enough. We didn't find that out until just before he died.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of help out there that a lot of people just don't know. So there are, beyond that, what do you advise people to do in situations like that?
And so in the see that you're going to become a caregiver, look into something called CareTaker. Learn about case management. Locality has a Department of Social place to start, because even through them they can redirect source. Some local service boards, that's where other services are available. If your loved one is eligible, Medicaid, Medicare services that are approved in your state, start with Department of Social Service, Community Services Board, into local nonprofits, then work with some of these entities are unsure of where the nonprofit in the area that you're dealing with. So with senior aging, then you want to look into a non-aging. If it's a mental or intellectual disability, then you want that provides support and area. If it's someone with mental health, look for organizations. If you feel like you're not Department of Social Services, where often a community services board, it's in all areas, are there to they exist.
It is, I think it's so important. You know, I'm reading a comment from someone, and they were just talking about that it's so important to empower people to thrive both personally and professionally, and seeking solutions to create pathways for sustainable balance. And I think people get sucked into this vortex, and it's not deliberate, where they become one something or the other. They become defined by the role that they take on. So, what are some solutions, or what are some things that you advise the caretaker to take on so that they don't become fatigued?
Caregivers is to set realistic between their work and their caregiving. I think we discussed earlier on where we want to take on everything. Have this feeling that almost like we're projecting our loved one could be doing, and that there's almost like this grief place when we accept whether it's development, whether it's medical diagnosis that has now changed of our loved one's life, that does have to occur, and that is really about these dreams that we've had, and we saw this person, we had them go. I was speaking with this analogy, it explains it perfectly. And we were boarding a plane to France, the most beautiful city, go to all these shops. But when the plane landed, we didn't understand the language. I say that to say we're often, we wanted to occur for this person, forecast it for them, or that we for them. And now that we have this changes that can restrict her, I'm not going to say they won't occur, but maybe, and how those things are accepted, and by accepting that, this unexplainable grief, accepting that.
My mother said that she mourned. When my father passed, she made the statement she mourned before he passed. So as you were talking, it brought that conversation to mind. And there are very levels to mourning that you go through. You mourn the relationship, you mourn the dreams that you had. She talked about how they thought in their elder years they would just be able to travel around and visit the grandkids. I have kids now, and she talks about how they always envision playing with the grandkids and all that stuff. So she had to mourn all that. And
Absolutely.
I believe not dealing with that during the caretaking process can lead to that resentment that you had mentioned earlier, and can lead or hasten the burnout, and then hasten the bad performance at work and all of that. So I really think we're going to have to revisit this topic again. And somebody because it's a real part of life, and it's a real part of business. I know somebody is saying, how does this affect business? Because when business decision makers do not recognize there are real things going on in their employees' life. And I'm not saying businesses are supposed to track everything, but you should be cognizant of what's going on in your employee's life. If you can just make certain tweaks, and we're going to delve into that next week, make certain tweaks or make certain things available to your employees, it can make a difference. Wrong employee retention, along being stressed, because if you can just relieve the stress of, I'm not going to lose my job because I need to take them to yet another doctor's appointment, or I need to make another phone call, or along those lines, it can make a difference. If you can just speak to that a little bit.
Totally agree. I know as an employer, it was actually one of the principles when it comes to employing people that were caregivers, the women that had, even as early as last year, children with autism. And I created that they understood that they'll have a place to work in life, because life is always returning. So a lot of being in that space, you employees or divergent themselves, appointments that they needed to, of that nature. My son is neurodivergent. My son is on the autism spectrum. Have to change my schedule around according to what his needs. As he's gotten older, intensive, but I know that, and I like to encourage employees that yes, we do have numbers that have in order for the entire shift. However, our employees and so I often to utilize a person-centered that just really helps us understand about our employees. Decision making takes so, and that way as employers we remain productivity, and employees are happy because they feel like their culture that respect.
That is a beautiful thing. Before I left corporate, my employer actually had flex shifts. And the employees that took advantage of those flex shifts were in the situations that we're talking about. They were caring for a loved person at home, and it made a difference. But we're going to talk about that next week when we tackle the business founder side. And a lot of business founders are caring for loved ones at home, and they're running a business, and they have employees. Transparency. My mother is now suffering with dementia, on first stages of it, and I have a company, and I have children, and I'm onboarding employees, and it could be a lot juggling all these balls at the same time, and it can be frustrating. And that was what birthed this conversation and the need to hold this conversation, because at times we take on this us them mentality, and we're all in the same boat. So
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to having that conversation with you next week.
looking
And thank you for
forward
joining
to
us this
it.
morning.
Absolute pleasure. This was great.
Thank you.
That we could speak on, and I just encourage, remember to set those priorities to those critical tasks between work care. Self-care is not in those bombs. It's sometimes just going to your place of faith and just allowing yourself a moment, have a flexible routine, outsource task as you can openly with your loved ones, and let them know what you need. If use very tools like that Google Calendar, that support network of friends, givers around you that are set those boundaries. Have your hours so that you don't to that burnout really quick, and just practice mindfulness.
Thank you for all of that. I'm going to keep that in mind. Some of that I do, some of that I didn't even think about doing. So I'm going to implement that. And I hope our audience, those who are listening to this live and those who are going to pick up on this on replay, implement everything that we're talking about now. And whether you need this today or you need this 20 years from now, keep these practical tips in mind, because you don't know what life is going to bring you. So, Whitney, somebody needs to reach out to you. And just for FYI, I have this on my website, but how can they reach out to you?
At www.info. And if you go to help centers there, you can also check out other books that are there. That is there to connect with you.
Okay. Well, I'm going to have that information up on my website as well, because I do believe in power partnering, and everybody needs a resource at some point in
Absolutely.
time, whether it's the individual business owners who say, look, I'm trying to bring somebody in to help my employees, and I don't know what to do. They can reach out to you and you can help them navigate.
Absolutely.
Well, have an amazing morning, and we look forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And That's it for this morning's portion of Caregivers Fatigue. Join us next week when we talk about and we visit this issue from the employer's perspective. Employers, business founders, we're dealing with the same things, and we're also running companies. So tune in next week. We're going live next week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we're continuing this conversation. Drop in the chat any questions, any comments that you may have. Join us live, and we can answer your questions, and we're going to continue the conversation. I'm Luciana Turner, and this is Contractors Conversation. Have an amazing day. Remember, a stressed mind will never create, so take some time for yourself each day to just breathe, walk away from whatever it is, and take a moment to relax. Have an amazing day.